Here's a new pandemic shaping up. Now, this is from The Messenger. Child pneumonia cases are surging in Europe after an outbreak in China. The Netherlands is experiencing a bizarre uptick in pneumonia cases among children, marking the second country to report an outbreak of this type this week. The Netherlands Institute for Health Services Research, a research institute in Utrecht, around 25 miles south of Amsterdam, reports that 80 of every 100,000 children between 5 and 14 came down with pneumonia last week. 80 out of 100,000 isn't massive, but it's a notable spike. A news outlet in the Netherlands said neither the Health Institute nor the National Institutes for Public Health, the Dutch equivalent for the CDC, could give an explanation. Mysterious pneumonia cases in China have also begun to raise alarms. First reports emerged last week that children's hospitals in Beijing and the province of Liaoning were overrun by children coming in with pneumonia. Chinese officials told the World Health Organization no new pathogens were detected, and the illnesses were caused by known seasonal viruses like flu and RSV, along with the bacteria Mycoplasma pneumoniae. Officials said the strict COVID measures that were lifted in 2022 left populations vulnerable to the viruses. However, COVID-related measures have been gone in the Netherlands for some time. Some fear officials in China are covering up the early stages of an epidemic. The nation was largely criticized for its COVID response. Now, here's another one. Flu hospitalizations are up 21% as triple-demic takes hold in the U.S. Hospitalizations, deaths, and emergency departments visits for respiratory viruses are starting to climb. You have COVID-19, the flu, and RSV all ticking up through the United States. COVID hospitalizations and deaths have risen the second week in a row, following several weeks of decline. Driving COVID counts is the HV1 variant, which experts suggested might spread more easily, but it does not appear to trigger more serious infections. It accounts for 32% of cases. Additionally, RSV is starting to trek across the country with cases in several states in the Southeast, particularly Florida. And then there is flu. Now, I used to not get my flu shot. In fact, I'm one of those people who always felt so awful after I got a flu shot. I just became convinced the flu shot was giving me the flu, and I stopped getting it. And then one year I had the worst, hands down, worst case of the flu I've ever had. And to make it worse, I was in Washington, D.C., and I got it at CPAC. And I was miserable and wound up having to stay in Washington a couple extra days in a hotel room. Miserable, absolutely miserable. And after that, I swore I would never skip the flu shot again. I've gotten the flu shot ever since, and I've never gotten the flu. It was miserable. But, so here's, the Chinese are starting to say there may be an immunity debt. Now, let me explain this one to you. When COVID happened in 2020 and our kids' school was locked down, they only locked down April, May. I mean, school was going to get out in a month and a half. They shut everything down, and kids then went back to school in August, and they did it with masks on. But they had lived an isolated existence during the summer. They weren't hanging out with people. We weren't having people come over. Philip would come over on the front porch, have cigars on Sunday nights like we do, but we did not have people in our house. Didn't have workers come to the house, didn't do anything. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't see relatives. We didn't travel. It was miserable. And when kids got back to school, y'all, I bet you if you had kids, same thing happened to you. They went back to school. Every single person got sick. In fact, our school, I want to say it was Christmas, not Thanksgiving. I want to say it was the Christmas holiday. That would have been 2020. That our school wound up shutting down a week early for Christmas because every single person got the flu. Everybody was so busy getting COVID or waiting for the COVID vaccines, nobody was getting the flu shot, and everybody got the flu. It was miserable. My kids did not get the flu because my wife, given her respiratory issues with her lung cancer, makes sure we all get the flu shot now. And they had gotten the flu shot, but a lot of people had not gotten the flu shot, and they all got sick. And this is kind of what's happening again. Around the world, everybody locked down. They were isolated. Even now, most people I know are living a more isolated existence than they did before COVID. People are not regularly hanging out and socializing like they used to. And the result is we're not building up our immune systems. And the result is, well, people are getting sick. Now, maybe this is something new. There are some animal flu outbreaks happening. Most people don't read the Drudge Report anymore. It kind of went off the deep end, it seems, but he's noting that there is a big influx of bird flu and swine flu happening around the world right now. What's notable in China is that masks and social distancing have returned, which suggests that there's more afoot in China. Now, this is our pivot away from the pathogens floating in the air to the realpolitik of the day. You cannot trust China with anything anymore. I mean, not that you ever really could, in large part because China is an authoritarian, dystopian, communist nation. But when the Chinese are bringing back masks and social distance for what they say is just run-of-the-mill pathogens, it doesn't sound like it, does it? It doesn't sound like it. You can't trust the Chinese. It is a remarkable situation that the Chinese have set themselves up for, that they locked down their country so long. This could very well be what's happening. This could actually be the reality. They locked their nation down so long and they isolated their people so much, and after COVID forced them to stay apart for so long that they compromised the immune systems of people, and now every time anything sweeps through, it's sweeping through an entire nation of 1 billion people. But you can't trust them. Concurrent to all of this going on, the Chinese are in a period of deep instability. See, let me just tell you, my theory is that China is not on the rise, it's on the decline. There are a lot of the elite in this world who believe that China is on the rise and that the United States is on the decline, China's on the rise, and they're cashing in. They're trying to cash out. They're trying to get rich before the U.S. declines, and China comes next. A lot of them are already kissing China's butt. You see this in the media. You see this with politics. See this in the Democratic Party. They are kissing China's butt, saying, look, they're next. They're going to be dominant. We're going to decline. We might as well fall in line and start reading from the Communist Constitution of China and quoting it. I actually think China's on the decline. And the reason I think China's on decline is Xi Jinping has gone full commie. See, the old premiers of China after Mao and before Xi decided to liberalize China and liberalize the economy of China, liberalize religion in China. The Communist Party would still be in control, but they would allow an entrepreneurial middle class to grow. And those entrepreneurs started to get real rich. The problem is that Xi Jinping understands that where economic liberalism flows, political liberalism flows, and he doesn't want to give up the Communist Party. So he's cracked down on economic liberalism. It was the economic liberalism of 1 billion people making China rise. Xi Jinping has shut that down now. And so China can't rise. But the downside is that it makes China more dangerous because the people can't really feel it because the conditions of authoritarianism and censorship in China have never really changed, even as economic liberalism was brought in. So they can't really feel things are different, even though they perceive things are beginning to be different. And that means Xi Jinping is going to have to direct their attention elsewhere. He's going to have to find someone to blame. And he's going to blame us, and he's going to blame Taiwan. And it's going to be geopolitically unstable in Asia because of what Xi Jinping has done. But it means China can't catch up to this. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but during Thanksgiving, China's biggest, modern, best ship in the fleet caught on fire, burned, destroyed the ship. This is happening a lot. Their aircraft carrier cracked in half. Chinese communism is as bad as Soviet communism, if not worse. And whistleblowers eat bullets, so nobody blows the whistle. And the greed, the graft, the corruption, it all flows into communism. China is collapsing, and it's being hit now by this bug. We assume it's regular pneumonia. That's what they're telling people, and regular pneumonia is spreading, but it's targeting kids more than adults, which is concerning. So here's what's going to happen. Charlie, you may need to put this in the I'm right file. What I predict is going to happen is the political grifters of America are going to tell you that this is all about next year's election, and that yet again they're going to steal it from Donald Trump because of a global pandemic that's been unleashed from China. We've gone through this playbook again. They're going to tell you that if this makes its way here next year. What will have actually happened is not a play-by-play setup to steal an election hiding behind a pathogen, although they will certainly use the pathogen to change the rules of the election like they did in 2020. What's happening is that the Chinese state is failing. The American elite can't ever recognize that China is not going to be dominant. So the American elite will be continuing to align American policy to accept that China is number one, while China is in free fall, plagued by fiscal corruption, fiscal crisis, economic crisis, health crisis, and military crisis. And only if we can get a competent world leader on the American stage will we finally be able to expose that China, it turns out, is a paper tiger, but it happens to be a very diseased paper tiger, not able to be dominant, but certainly dangerous still, even as a paper tiger to the world. We need to be on the lookout for more signs that China is collapsing internally. Xi Jinping's days may be numbered as a result.
You're listening to the